Okay, I'll call to order the board meeting workshop, November 9th, 2017. Are there any citizens here? If y'all don't mind, I'm not going to welcome citizens who are not here. And y'all are all free to talk, and your participation is welcome. So, the workshop item is to discuss proposed rezoning for Discovery Oaks Elementary School. Questions from the audience? Since there is no audience, we have none. So, Superintendent.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you all for actually being flexible and providing this opportunity for us. I know that we, on the way out of the board meeting, handed you a document the other evening for you to look at some options for Discovery Oaks. In that, I sent you an email as well having a projected date for a community meeting, which was not announced to anyone, but I just thought it was best just to get in front of you and have more conversation about what we want to do as a school district when it comes to rezoning. I know how it impacted us maybe 2 years ago, and we wanted to make certain that we didn't have a repeat, and we did it in a clean fashion, and that you were at the table in the decision-making process as we move forward in order to engage our community. So I have my great team here, Ms. Cottle, Mr. Fossa, and Dr. Kemp, that will go through all the documents that I provided to each of you, and then I will close with my recommendation and then look for conversation after that.
All right, well, outstanding. Thank you. It's always fun redistricting. It's just a great opportunity to redraw boundaries. And I think the difference between this time and last time was we have to do it this time. We're opening the school fall 2018. It's happening. So I went to the team, and we have actually been planning and working on different options for quite a while. And I have to tell you, when you start looking at the parameters, I know you've had some of this information, but when you start looking at the parameters, I can't tell you how clean of a process and how lucky we are logistically and geographically, and how clean as far as balance and location that is. Of course, we had some specific parameters, and Mr. Connell's going to mention those, and then Mr. Fossa will talk about specifically the numbers and the utilization rates and things of that nature. But we had some specific goals and objectives, and when we looked at the boundaries for Discovery Oaks, and first was converting all of our elementary schools to a K-6, which also meant our Oak Junior High School would become a true junior high school, since sixth graders from Oak Juniors would also, they'd become a true junior high school like the rest. We also wanted to make sure, and direction from the superintendent, that we were to attempt to minimize the disruption to feeder zones. So as much as possible, minimize the disruption, and only the areas that were impacted were looked at. Of course, safety, considering the number of walkers in both those neighborhoods, we started looking at that as well. We also wanted to make sure that we keep neighborhoods together, because sometimes, that creates a problem. If you got a street somewhere and one side street goes, and we made sure that none of that happened in the options that we looked at. Another key consideration, considering that area, and Ms. Bowles' area out there, the growth, looking at future growth, what we know now for future growth and development, and the DRIs that are out there that Mr. Fossa has been working with the commission on, that we know that we balance those between the areas for future growth. Also looking at balanced enrollment with students and the schools, that was a key factor, and also trying to stay consistent with the county's development plan of keeping neighborhood schools, to try to minimize transportation, try to keep as many within a walking radius, true neighborhood schools where we could. And of course, my favorite, which y'all be happy to know, was reducing the number of portables at POE, OBE, and the relocatables that over time we will not need anymore. So with that said, he's probably going to hit a few more of these, but this is Jim Connell. For those of you, I think most everybody knows Mr. Connell. He sat in my chair, this chair where I served for a long time. He is really, really strong with facilities, and we're blessed to have him. And he's done this a few times, right there, Mr. Connell. So,
and this presentation is going to be twice as good because you have two Jims. You can't go wrong with two of us. Dr. Kemp hit on a lot of the critical points already. I'm going to go through this actually line by line, and if you know me, I usually don't do that, but this sets the basics for what we're going to present. We have to redistrict because of a new school. That is always a good reason. And we're also going to tweak a few other things within the district. The grade structure from two of our existing schools, Plantation Oaks and Oakley Village, will go from K5 to K6, get us back to the standard that we have in the rest of the district. We're also changing Oakleaf Junior from 6-8 to 7-8 while we do this. Dr. Kemp hit on these, our goals. We want to open the new school, Discovery Oaks Elementary, with a sustainable student population and no portables. We don't want to open at capacity or over capacity, and you'll see the numbers look pretty good. We're going to reduce enrollment at POE, which is the main reason for the new school. Change the grade structures at POE, OBE, and Oakleaf Junior. Minimize disruption to everybody involved. Redistricting can be a traumatic event for families. Minimize bus transportation and provide safe walk and bike routes to the school. I'm going to throw out these assumptions that may seem obvious, but I want to make sure everybody gets them. Plantation Oaks is going to lose pre-K through 5 students, potentially to the new school. They're also going to pick up 6th graders. So we're taking some out, some others are going back in. You have the same thing with Oakleaf Village, and when other Jim gets to the maps, you'll see there is a little hunk of Oakleaf Village that it's affected that will now go to Plantation Oaks. It's been on the other side of Branham Field Road for a while. Oakleaf Junior, we're going to take the 6th grade out. Again, hopefully give us some more growth room there and get rid of a few of the older portables. And then open the new school, Discovery Oaks, with some room to grow. The last 2 lines there are key, and these are assumptions now. Controlled open enrollment may not apply to these schools. If we don't try and control open enrollment a little bit, we can't give you any kind of numbers that mean anything. And then students may not be grandfathered in at Plantation Oaks or Oakleaf Village. That will be a decision for this group, and that could have a significant difference in where these kids are going to school. Jim Connell recommendation would be we don't need to grandfather right now because that again just throw our hands up in the air. Transportation concerns, when we get to the maps you'll see this in a little more detail. Either one we have to cross a 4-lane divided highway. Plantation Oaks Boulevard, the parkway that runs through there. We have buses on that road with either one, some going more in one direction. We are working with the county right now to get a traffic light in front of the school. We deem it as a requirement. We don't see any way we can do without it. As well as there will be a crossing there no matter which option we go for. This is, if you've been involved in a redistricting before, I know at least one of you has. I've been
most fun one can have.
I used to say I've been involved in every one since 1998, other than the one you mentioned 2 years ago. I wasn't involved in that. So this is probably the simplest one we could have had. The geography in the area, we always look for easily definable boundaries. This new area in the county is broken down into easily definable neighborhoods. We turn those all into population regions so we can reach out and tell how many kids are living in those areas now by grade, and we know where they go to school. It also, I'm going to let Jim get into the real numbers here, but when we pull this up, we ran a couple of other options. You won't see them because they didn't make sense to us. We came up with 2, and just off the top, both of them got us within a handful of kids to where we want to be. We didn't end up with one that had 500 and 1,000 kids. We came out literally within about 15 kids from either one of these options you're going to see at good numbers at all the schools. So with that said, that's kind of the basics that we set these up on. Jim's going to go through some of the numbers and some of the ups and downs for both options.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jim Foster, the other Jim here. So I kind of wanted to work from the top down, and I worked with the county's comprehensive plan as well as with the Brandonfield master plan and then with the Plantation Oaks master plan. And a lot of their premise is want to keep neighborhoods together and keep areas within walkability. And so this one here is the one that we've recommended because it fits that bill. These little lines that you see are study areas, and they sort of are population hotspots within these particular areas, and that's why it's broken up like that. So this particular attendance zone that we're looking at for the pros, as you can see, there's quite a few of them. It ticks all the boxes that Dr. Kemp was talking about, brings the enrollment down for PO, it keeps neighborhoods together. The boundaries are in proximity to the schools. You can see there's the new school, Discovery Oaks, and Poe is up here. So if you're looking out your window and you live in Forest Hammock, you will see the school you're going to go to. If you're looking out your window and you live in this neighborhood here, you can see the school that you're going to go
What
to.
neighborhood is that?
I can tell you the name of the road. It's Deerview Road. I'm not sure the name of the neighborhood, but that's Deerview Road. And the entrance to Deerview Road is literally right across the street.
Okay,
So that's the road is, okay. These numbers represent the amount of elementary students that are in those neighborhoods at this time, K through 6. Okay.
Is that red line that's coming up from the bottom, is that Oak Leaf Plantation?
This is the
Parkway?
park,
Yeah.
this is the
Okay.
parkway.
Yeah.
And so the divider just is the northern boundary of Eagle Landing. And even though there's a neighborhood here, the entrance to this neighborhood is way up here. So even though it looks like down there, it's up in that area there. Okay. Another pro was you've got a growing area here and a growing area in here. You have a growing here and a future growth here, the Armstrong DRI. So we have 2 growing areas in each particular zone. You'll see in the next one, there's actually 3 growing areas in one zone, which I think is not a good idea. So we have balanced growth in these 2 particular zones. We do have some cons. Of course, the students would have to be walking across this 4-lane, 45-mile-an-hour road to get to school. It would require a traffic signal, which we've already working on now. We just did a traffic study up there now and going for there. It would require crossing guards, of course, and the buses would be required to turn left, and to get up into, from here, would have to go left to get up into Eagle Landing. Okay. You can see what our attendance would be at Open, 802, which would include 124 6th graders coming from the junior high. And Poe's attendance would be at 826, which would include 144 6th graders coming from the junior high, and 12 right now that are coming from Oak Leaf Village. And you say, why is that? This neighborhood up here, which is Arbor Mill, is zoned to Oak Leaf Village.
Okay.
So these people look out the window at this school and go over there. And we're fixing to change that. The neighborhood's very underdeveloped right now. There's not a whole lot of homes in there.
If you're looking down at the future 105,
Mhm.
how close does that get to, I can't say the
Tynes.
name of Tynes. I was going to say the name of the school.
There's
but
nothing
a
built in
neighborhood
here
down
right
there.
now,
Mhm.
and as it is now, this would be zoned for Tynes.
Okay, so that's sort of not really relieving Tynes much, but we would be relieving them of that group right there.
In the future, we're taking it out of, there's nothing there, but we're taking it out of
Right.
the time
Taking
zone
it out
at
of
this
the time zone.
at this point.
Okay.
And you do know that, I guess this Tynes Boulevard is going to be driving right through here and connecting in here. And that's already platted. So that will be, that neighborhood will definitely be driving right up and through there.
Times will go
Publix
through
is
the
right about
future
there.
105 box,
Tynes Boulevard.
Tynes Boulevard will go right through the future.
and it's gonna come out on,
Right across from Publix,
Mhm.
which is probably right about here,
Yeah.
right about there.
How far down is that property we just acquired?
It is like right about
Yeah.
here,
Mhm.
right about down here.
What is that, Two
More
Creeks
miles.
or Two Creeks, right?
Creeks.
thank you.
Point out again and emphasize the numbers we ended up with. This was the first cut, and it really stunned me at least that we were that close.
So close.
Those are excellent numbers. That's right where we wanted to be. The capacity of the new school is designed for 860, so that gives us a little bit of breathing room there, and it's taken several hundred out of Plantation Oaks, so we're looking good at both of them.
All right, so this would be the other option, the other zone, and it's using the border of the actual parkway as keeping this side here going up to Poe and this side over here going down to Discovery Oaks. You can see that there's a growing neighborhood here, a growing neighborhood here, and a growing neighborhood here, which should all be feeding into the new school.
but you're saying down there where that new Publix is, those kids would go all the way up and around the roundabout and back out to Publix.
Yes.
I'm sorry about that.
Oh, yeah, if it's this one,
Yeah.
it's past.
This-
I mean,
That's
that would
past
put
on the other side.
That would
behind
put
it.
people living down there near the new Publix, having to go all the way
They would go right
around
here.
the roundabout
Passing
and
the
then
school.
Yeah,
over to
And
Publix.
Mr. Foster, not to speak to this,
And
but
the
you have
numbers,
2
353
communities
and 10.
that are walking distance
Yeah.
to their schools now have to go down the road, which doesn't make sense.
So this neighborhood, which is Deer View, would be coming out, looking at that new school, and having to go take a right and go all the way up to Poe. Okay, but look at the numbers. 823, 805, they're almost just flip-flopped.
Yeah.
So the numbers, it couldn't have worked out any better, it's like he was saying.
And if I can point out, the reason we're showing you this, while there are some could be disadvantages, there's also selling points to it. You know, if you're in here now and you're currently going to Plantation Oaks, we're not disrupting you. You're staying in that school. So there are, that's the only reason we're showing you this. When we went past this option, everything else to us was kind of just a bad idea. So you have,
Okay.
so you have the two, and number, where staff is recommending number one. But the numbers are, again, were good, and it's an easily dividable area. When Jim gets to our little check matrix, is what kind of killed this one in our minds was the growth. This throws all the growth into one area. So it just didn't seem like a real good thing to do. Plus you have the, all right, I am, you know, the argument, well, I am looking at the brand new school, okay? So how do you weigh that? Well, you get to stay where you've been or you go to the new one, but the growth, in my mind, really killed this.
Right, and Poe's more set up to have the seating to be able to absorb that growth of that upper left-hand side as well.
Right.
Versus the new one.
So this is side by side. So it gives you a quick snapshot of what they both look like. And then the numbers are there as well, 802, 826, 823, 805. They're very close as far as population
It's
goes.
amazing that it came that close, but
We were very lucky that this happened. Oh, okay. So there's our check, basically our check in the block. Our goals, open enrollment, which we talked about earlier, balanced and sustainable, they both take care of that. Reduced enrollment at Poe and Oak Leaf Junior, they both take care of that. Change the grade structure, they both take care of that. Minimize disruption to students, they both take care of that. And this one minimizes transportation costs and provides safe walking and bike paths, that's option one. And neighborhood growth is balanced, option one.
And also if you look, you can see the current enrollment numbers and then what it does. Since we haven't flashed them up before, the Oak Leaf Village as well as Oak Leaf Junior, the roughly 400 kids, a little more than 400 out of Oak Leaf Junior. We have had discussions with transportation, and Mr. Fitzpatrick is here. They favor option one also. It appears to now have the least amount of busing. Even though there will be some for both.
Does Oak Leaf Village Elementary have the capacity to take on those 100 more students?
They would need a little help. They are going to be losing anybody coming in from Arbor Mill. They're going to be losing that whole group. So that whole group is going to be going to Poe.
Okay. But they're
We were going to do that at the beginning of the year.
right.
when we looked
They're
at
just
that.
gaining. They're
Right.
gaining
They're gaining
100
the whole
students is a
grade,
lot.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
the parents were not
That's
real
all 6th
happy.
graders.
Yes.
Yes.
I got you.
Yes.
I got you. Okay.
Farm through.
And you know, one of the things we thought about was the existing fifth graders at POE and the existing existing fifth graders at POE and the fifth graders at OVA. We're going to have to make a change anyway to go to Oak Leaf Junior High School. So, you know, we started thinking, we scrimmage. I believe in the scrimmage. We've looked at these two options. We started looking at every other option. As Mr. Connell said, beyond these two options, it just got to the point where it was more disruptive, created more cost to the district. It just didn't seem to make, it just more disruption to feeder patterns. But we started looking at those fifth graders at POE and OVE that we're going to have to go to the high, go make a change and go to the junior high anyway. So it's as balanced as it can be. I mean, I don't think it's
Let me ask you, I want to make sure, on the Oak Leaf Village Elementary, it'll just take putting a few portables in there to take up that extra 100 kids they're getting?
We've looked at utilization capacities open up day one, just so you know, they're going to be approximately, they're all going to be at 85%. So controlled open enrollment, and we said it may not be applicable to them, most likely they're going to be at least 85% capacity. We have capacity at ODE to take care of those kids, and we will make sure that they have it. Trust me, we have surplus relocatables that will be available from POE and
Oak Leaf Junior.
Oak Leaf Junior. And we're using this as an opportunity to take care of the oldest, get rid of, I'm going to remove or reduce the oldest inventory first. and to make sure that we keep the best portables we can.
Will there still be relocatables at POE and
My calculation's 5.
Guide?
There's 30 there
There's
now.
30 now.
So it'll be greatly reduced.
5 required.
So we'll add a few to Oakley Village, reduce the number at Plantation Oaks,
We have none there.
and then none at the
No.
new school.
And reduce the
And
number at
reduce
junior high
At
also.
the junior high.
Yeah,
And
that
reduce
will
it,
be huge.
yeah,
Yeah,
because
take
lots of
6 out.
schools there.
And we will probably, as Jim said, 5 required, we'll probably leave a couple more, just because we're dealing, I want to emphasize, we're dealing with where the kids live. You know,
Yes.
SPAs and all the other things that jump in there. We can't manage that, so we're identifying where they live, and if they're in that zone, we're assuming they're going to go to that. There's going to be a variance at every school.
Yeah, so this was originally the date I wanted to have a community meeting. However, we'll do, my recommendation now is for me and staff to go and engage the community after Thanksgiving, sooner than later, and start show them option 1, option 2, benefits of all. And then at that time, just get some feedback from the community that's impacted. Take that feedback, and I hope each of you will attend. We'll have a table for you. You can't interact because you're going to end up voting, but you can sit there and engage and listen. And then we can come back to the table, make a final decision, so we can start doing a number of things of messaging in order to advertise the opening of the school and whom it would impact based on the recommendation that I provided to the board, and the board decides. And I forgot that we need to add neighbor to neighbor to the advertising opening of Discovery Oaks.
And you'll make it clear to the public when we have this meeting that the school board members will not be
Correct.
answering questions
Yes,
or
ma'am.
participating.
Yes, ma'am.
Because we
Yes, ma'am.
don't want to go there.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
What's the date that you want to have this finalized by?
I'd like to, I mean, originally I'd love to bring it to December, but I think it's probably going to go January to just to give it time to react.
And how many town hall meetings do you anticipate having?
You know, based on what we present, I really, right now, only believe that we will need 1. And it is all determined on how many individuals attend. If there's any type of pushback, which I cannot forecast any, but there may be, or a different way, yeah. I mean,
Trust
some-
me, there's going to be some
yeah,
pushback
so,
from somebody.
I'll do some legwork in the community on the
It
grocery
should be
store.
pretty good.
And,
So how are you notifying the parents that
Yeah,
there
so-
will be redistricting taking place? Because you
So,
have to communicate
yeah.
with them well in advance.
Yeah, so we'll do this. So I will say staff will push out our parent link to inform them of when our meeting will take place after we come back from Thanksgiving. We'll talk about the time, date, location, rationale for it, invite them all. We'll do our presentation. If there's not, additional feedback that needs to come back to the drawing board, then we'll bring that feedback back to the board. And then probably January for the board to vote upon it. Once we do that, we will put information in Clay Today. We will do the newspaper, Times Union, SPA public service announcements on the radio. If I need to personally go to subdivision, meetings, I will do that.
Somehow we have to
before.
reach them, not all parents read the paper. you
Absolutely.
know.
So we'll do Parent Link as well. I mean,
They
if
have
I
to
need to
know.
have community meetings or, I can do it afterwards, I have no problem doing that.
So what month are you looking at doing this?
Probably bringing it to January.
Well, make sure you reach everybody before you
Yeah.
bring it to us.
Yeah, trust me, I can openly tell you, I've done this for 30 schools in the past. You're not gonna have a problem. All the processes will be clean, and we'll be ready to go.
So the 14th is canceled.
That was the
Next,
tentative date, the
That was
14th.
the 14th is
That was the
canceled.
tentative.
Oh, yeah, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
14th of what?
November, the date that's on there.
He said we're gonna do
Right.
community meetings
After
after
Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving.
If we get to a part where we can't bring it in January, I will signal acknowledge to the board so you know, and then we'll look to go February. But I will, to Ms. Gierke's point, I will go everywhere I can to make sure they know and contact them.
But the public meeting,
Good. I
you're
think they're,
really not looking for January for that.
good
No,
plan.
we're looking-
When are you
Your first one is
looking?
actually
First
perfect.
week of December.
It's
Probably
got
will be
growth for
first week of
both, it's the
December.
least impact.
Not
There will be people still not
Feet
happy with
down,
it
they want to
because,
breathe a little bit.
when it affects your child,
clean
we
house.
would change that. Neighborhoods are staying with neighborhoods, and that's really
All
important.
right, yes, ma'am.
You're exactly correct.
Go ahead, sir.
Sorry,
No, go
through the chair. Ms. Carricker, you're exactly right. You know, we scrimmaged on that and looked, you know, we scrimmaged for the pros and the cons and the possible issues. And some of those possible issues would be fifth graders at POE that are looking at going to sixth grade at DOE. And then that means they would be at a new school for six and then have to go to a new school. There may be an issue that we scrimmaged with that. We've even pulled the numbers on that, and that is,
There's 128 in option 1 and about 72 from option 2.
fifth graders that fall into that category of two new schools. But you got to keep in mind, they were going to be moving new schools anyway if we didn't do this. So we've tried to scrimmage on that, and there's going to be, trust me, going through this process, there's going to be someone somewhere that's not happy. But in the fall of 2018, this Discovery Oaks Elementary School
That's
is
got
open.
open.
So
Oh,
we'll be
there will
ready.
be lots of people that say, I
everybody
never
will be
heard
thrilled.
They will.
Even though we-
Yeah, right.
There's gonna be a lot of happy people.
You said that there
You know.
weren't,
I agree.
there was gonna be no grandfathering, so I'm just thinking through this. You're gonna have somebody who's, one kid in the family is gonna be going here.
They should all, it's a
No.
neighborhood. They'll all
Yeah,
go
so the
together.
neighborhood will be pushed over. And the reason we don't grandfather is because you're always gonna, you never can identify a true capacity, and you potentially, or you probably greatly will not be balanced. So this brings a balanced approach and allows us to talk about the subdivisions and partial them out and assign them to a school for the future in a intellectual.
We just have to make sure that we're consistent. So if we
Right.
say no
Absolutely.
grandfathering, no
I
special
agree with you.
people
Right.
Yeah.
request that
I
my
agree.
child went
That's fair.
kindergarten through fourth grade
Right.
here, they're gonna move.
Yes, ma'am. And our recommendation.
Their
which-
older brothers and sisters went to
I
Poe.
get
So
it.
therefore, my
get
child,
it.
my youngest, my baby
get it.
needs to continue.
And that's what we're gonna
We will
do.
make it so
That's
awesome.
exactly what we
And you will also hear both sides, probably the board members more than, and the superintendent more than staff, but, you
Oh,
know,
we'll just.
I don't want to disrupt my kid, I don't want to go to the new school.
Right.
Or, why can't my kid go to the new school?
Yes.
No matter where they are, there will be both of those.
That's
all right?
true.
Let me say this, I mean, we've done a lot of redistricting over the years. This looks like, I hate to say this, it looks like it should be
It's about as good as
the
you're
best
gonna get.
redistricting that we have had,
Outstanding.
and we have been through some bloodbaths.
Well, think of 2 years ago, what was presented to these poor families. I mean, a neighborhood right across from the school was told they were going somewhere else, so
I agree.
it was just terrible how it was handled.
Logical.
Because and then that started neighborhood fights on Facebook in their own groups about, well, you're not really
Oak Leaf member.
Oak Leaf.
Oh, please.
You
Oh,
don't really
it got
live in Oak
nasty.
Leaf, like you're not good
Yes.
enough,
It
you know.
hit
It got bad.
Yeah, I agree.
But my question is about those 12, you said 12 kids are
Right now,
going,
there's 12 because that's all the homes that are in there.
and they're at Poe,
They're at Poe.
and they're gonna go to Oak Leaf Village.
They're gonna go to
No, they're at Oakley
They're at Oak Leaf
Village.
Village now. They're here,
Okay.
and they're bused
Yeah.
up through Duval County, down here, over to
Remember
here,
that
Right.
last year?
and that
Are
will
they,
change.
I feel like that.
They
should
go
be
to
a
Oak Leaf
great
Village now.
They do.
okay. I happen to be friends with the mother of about 4 of those kids.
Okay,
And they felt divided, so they're no longer divided, right?
correct.
The neighborhood, the whole neighborhood is going, okay. And they're now gonna go to Poe, and are they all 6th graders?
I couldn't tell you right now what they're.
Oh, okay, so they're mixed
That's the
grades.
K through
One
6,
small
that
neighborhood.
number.
That's probably-
That's the
They're
total.
all moving, okay,
They're all
okay.
moving.
That may be a,
On the slide, it said they were all 6th grade. I thought on the previous slide where you had them marked out, those 12 students. So 12 6th graders from OBE.
Oh, it does. We'll check that, I think that is the total number.
Oh, okay,
K through
say,
six.
say,
Oh, okay.
say.
Yeah, see that?
Because I had the thought that, you know, if my kid has been at OBE from K through 5,
There's your, yep,
and it's, I mean, that's 12 kids that I'm. Okay.
workshop.
We're in a workshop, you're more than welcome.
And that'll be,
It could be.
and that's what we thought about that. That'll be a decision, you know, that we'll have to look at once we look at utilization capacity and the controlled and open enrollment's an option. If it's even an option, if they're at 85%, and, you know, there's special considerations. You know, it's really as, like Ms. Carrick, it's really as clean as it possibly can be. There's gonna be some issues we deal with, and we wanna work with stakeholders the best we can. So, trust me, this is almost, honestly,
Don't say it.
I'm not
Don't
gonna
say
say
it.
it. I won't say it on the camera, but it couldn't have worked out better for either option.
Ms. Condon,
We're
your
looking-
folks, do you know?
I think I'm thinking of a different street.
Okay, I was wondering, because I need to talk to that neighborhood about an idea that I have, so I need to talk to their homeowners association and stuff.
I think I'm thinking of a different part of Oak Leaf.
Okay.
And thank you for the photo updates.
Yeah.
That was
Cool.
pretty
Fly
cool.
over.
I
That's
love
pretty
that.
cool, isn't it?
Yes.
That's good,
Yeah,
thank
really
you.
Making
Good,
great
good.
progress.
That was awesome.
Now, who did that for us? Not Robbie?
Here's
right.
here's
Wait a
the call
minute, he's
provided
not
that.
down.
And we will, right now I'm thinking of December the 5th, which I believe is a Tuesday, for a potential date.
Date 4.
What time of the day?
Community.
Deal.
First- Yes, ma'am.
Will that be a nighttime?
Well, you'll let us know.
Yes, ma'am, I will. I'll have a table.
And just make sure when you started that you let them know the board members
Yes,
want
ma'am.
to speak,
Yes, ma'am.
so that,
I sure will.
there's no problems.
Then you're gonna advertise that a whole lot
Yes,
and send
ma'am.
notes.
We're good, we're good.
Well, you guys did a good job, thank you. You made it easy
Whatever.
for us to
Well done, Mr.
understand.
Fitzpatrick.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good.
Good job.
He just got back from driving today.
Thank you. I appreciate your support.
All right.
Let us know if you have questions.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's good to see you again, Mr. Connell.
Does everyone need me to send them an electronic copy or what I
It's
get?
attached to the board. It's attached to the agenda already.
We have a few extra here if anybody needs one.
Is that the same thing we
It
got?
is, you
Yes,
just
ma'am.
change the
Yes,
school
ma'am.
name from
Yes,
Y.
Should be. But you still have a Y that says Discovery Oaks on it now?
There we go. Dr. Kemp, you and your team did a good job.
Thank you, sir.
Opportunity
to
to
serve.
Awesome.
Is this the same
Same
thing?
thing.
It's the same thing, but it says Discovery Oaks now, not Y. We changed it since
You too.
the name was.
Tommy.
We want the latest.
Good job.
Tried.
Keep up the good
Hey, I'll get my 2-week
That's
CDL.
it, we gotta go back into executive session now, Becky.
Miss Peggy. I have got taken a session. I'm
All
sorry.
right.
Before we close,
No, it's Mr.
before we close, I just wanted to, we're not closed, correct?
I haven't posted it yet,
Okay,
but
good.
everybody's leaving.
Just so you know, I would like to just chime in real quickly when you're ready. May I?
Do you need to wait for
So-
Ashley to come back?
They need to be
Yep.
here.
You should wait for
Absolutely.
Ashley to come back and you're
I
speaking
can
to the
wait.
board.
Okay, wait.
Do we need Addison here?
I think we have to.
Okay.
Does he know
He
we're
wants to
still
tell
in?
us something before we.
I'm sorry to guide them here. I just wanted to make
I
sure.
thought we were done.
No, because he knows
Or not.
Okay, everybody's here. Okay,
Thank you.
Mr. Daggett has something he wants to say before we close the workshop.
Okay.
we're still in the meeting.
We're in the meeting because he wants to say something.
So,
Okay,
Right.
Mr. Cox.
thank you.
Fine. Oh.
Okay, you did a good job, sir. Thank you.
Good seeing you, Jim.
So pardon the interruption, I apologize. But with respect to these upcoming community meetings / town halls, everyone is free to attend these. Board members are free to attend these, but I have to be Dougie Downer. Sometimes you use the term Debbie Downer. I'll be Dougie Downer. Where there are 2 or more gathered on a matter that is obviously going to come before the board, there is the risk of a sunshine violation. Okay? It is, I want to just make it clear, you're free to attend. 2 or more are free to attend. It is my strong preference that 1 will attend, not 2 or more. That's fine. I have to be protectionist as your attorney. If you are to go, if 2 or more shall be gathered, okay, I would recommend, although it sounds ridiculous, to separate yourself spatially. There was this case, Finch, where school board members took a bus tour, you may recall, in 2008, and a couple of things were drawn from it where 2 or more gathered. Space yourself out. Do not
solicit questions. Obviously, do not state your preferences or, project how it is that you may decide on these things. That's sometimes hard to do, sometimes it isn't. And I know that you're all quite experienced with Sunshine Law. I simply wanted to just put that out there and let everyone know. And that's it. Thank you.
Mr. Daggett, do you
Thank
think
you.
it's a problem if the superintendent has a table there for board members to sit at, for the board to be sitting there? I mean, we're all professionals.
We're sitting there.
We
in
know
front
we
of the
can't
public.
talk. It's like when we go to the spelling bee and we're all in the front row together.
And you
and
used
we
to do
go-
it in your former life,
You
how
know,
did you do it, Addison?
Kind of seems silly to
Look.
spread us out around a room in the middle of parents, where we might be, people
My
might be more
parents may
attentive
say
to talk
something
to
to you
us.
if you get out there. I-
Well, and with a table, do we have to sit at a table?
No, I
I
just,
mean,
I
that's
just,
just
if you
a-
wanted a table, I would provide one. If you feel like you don't want
I
a
would
table or
rather,
not.
I mean, I'm not gonna sit at a
Up to
table
you, up to each of you. I was just trying to be respectful.
just to move around. I mean, it's there, from my
Listen, I'll have a table, you
perspective,
can sit, you don't
having
wanna sit,
been,
you don't wanna sit.
So that-
I was a teacher at
Yeah.
Argyle at the last
Yeah.
one, and it wasn't happy. And there were a lot of angry people, and a lot of people were talking, but there were 3 board members there.
I've
Yeah,
done
it
it.
was-
And we all sat
Which is
together, it was Carol,
I-
Donna, and I, right in the front by Diane, and
I
I've been
didn't,
there
I
too.
didn't go
Yeah.
because it was coming from the sunshine aspect, but I think we're all professionals, and I think that we serve the whole county,
We do.
so
Okay.
it's not,
Well,
Okay, listen, here's what I think, if anybody, I'm going to speak up. I don't see a thing in the world wrong with Addison having a table sitting up there and 5 board members sitting at the table. We're sitting there in front of a room full of people. We're not going to be going,
You promise you're not gonna do that?
I'm telling you, that would be so stupid.
Actually, we're
But
in
I-
on either side.
But I would, I mean, we'd already talked about this during the meeting. We're all grown-ups. We do not answer questions. We do not ask questions. We do not say a word.
Yeah, I don't even know if I have a table big enough.
I think if we're gonna all sit together, could we
Well,
potentially
I've just
have
got
our
chairs
table
about
facing the audience?
Well, this is the thing. Let
And
them
then
look at
have-
us to,
But also
because
have
that
a
way,
camera.
yeah,
So
that
that-
way we will be
Yeah,
able to
a question or
see
two
arise.
what the
You can-
people are saying.
well, and if we record it, which I'm hoping we would
We'll probably
record
do
it,
Facebook Live.
something
So
like
we
that,
can
so
be
that the
on the
community would be able to.
The ones who can't be there.
No,
That would be
yeah,
nice for our
whoever's
community
in there,
members to go
then
back
they
and
can hear
watch
it
and
as
see
well.
what was asked and how it was
Yeah.
answered.
We'll
Yeah.
probably
And
do
that way,
Facebook
like
Live.
you said, if there's if something arises and it
Right.
goes to court, we have
You
video
like
proof
that.
that there was
Right.
no.
Your children
And if we're
chats
facing the audience, we can see who is asking what and kind of, because just like when we had that meeting before, I mean, I would be more uncomfortable sitting out among the people because
Yeah.
that's when Joey's mommy is going to say, you can't do that. I mean, I don't want to do
What if we
that.
just
Okay.
advertise it
But
as a
y'all,
board meeting if we're all 5
yeah,
going to
that's
be
what I was
there
about to
anyway?
say. Advertise it as a workshop, and because there's no difference in Joey's mommy saying, you can't do that, and them calling us and saying that.
Right, but the difference is, if Mary were to stand up and answer a question about something, now we know how Mary feels
No,
about
I
it. so
get
we
that.
can
That's why
vote
you
on
I
can't
get
say
So we
that,
can't do that.
but I don't know that
I
why we
think we're
couldn't
trying to make
advertise
things too
that.
complicated.
Yeah, you know,
We're
Say, let
complicating
me drive
things.
it.
Just go.
Yeah.
hang out.
I mean, it's like,
We all promise to behave.
We have the
Really,
potential
Mrs.
for
Sunshine
sunshine.
violations
Yeah.
every single day.
Honey,
You know, when we go to
Yeah.
Republican women and we're all there, or we go to, yeah, I mean,
Well, the distinction, however, is that you're dealing with something that is obviously going before the
Yes.
board. It's-
Right.
It's
Yes.
foreseeable
It is different.
that
right.
there'll be a
I
decision.
get that.
I don't
So-
see anything wrong with us all sitting together.
we will-
No, no, I don't
Is
either.
there?
And like I said, you're all, none of you are novice here. You're aware of the Sunshine Law. That whole spatial thing is something that attorneys for boards have to deal with. Because this case came from a set of facts where 2 school board members were in a bus, and the court took note of that and discussed that they should have been separated. They were confined. So, in any event, I know that all of you will behave appropriately and in accordance with Sunshine Law.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
thank you.
Can I
Okay,
just
thank
request
you.
that our table faces the audience and we have a video, whether it's
Yeah,
Facebook Live or
um,
whatever?
We don't
I
want
can't, I don't know if, I mean, if it's Facebook Live, you're not gonna be seen, so only the presenters will be
If we're
seen.
behind you, if we're facing the audience.
Yeah, but you don't wanna be me speaking and you be behind me.
Why wouldn't we
So,
just be?
I'll figure something out.
Be the
At the end of the
same.
day, I mean, if we're not gonna have conversation, at the end of the day, I'm gonna present and just please sit there and.
Very good.
We won't nod, we won't roll our
Don't make
eyes,
it,
we
we're making
won't
too much out of it, I think.
say no or yes, and we'll
I
behave.
might be rolling my eyes.
Are we
Then
adjourned?
accused
Are
of
we
that
done?
before. This workshop's adjourned, now we're gonna go into executive session.